Alright guys, hear me out here. We don't have an intro, funny intro. I'm just so fucking proud of my barber. Just look at what he did, boy. Just look at the haircut, man. It's perfect. It's literally God created Earth in 6 days. Because the 7th one, that was my barber looking for my haircut. Hello everyone, Pantoufleee here today for a new video that you guys suggested in stream. You want me to do a top where I'm just gonna show you the best tank out of all nations. At least that's gonna be my opinion, because you might have a different one. So feel free to tell me in the comments what you think about my top and what tanks you would replace. So let's not lose too much time and jump directly into it. Let's start with the best nation of all time, the Frenchies, and especially talking about the ARL 44, the tier 6 heavy Frenchie. What I love about this tank is that it combines everything you need to carry the battle. You have an amazing gun, if not the best gun at tier 6, one of the best at least, because it features a great penetration, a great reload time, and a really good alpha damage. Everything you need to snapshot and inflict a lot of damage. Now, you also have a good mobility for a tank that big, and also the mobility is really great considering your armor profile. With this tank, as long as you stay in front of your opponents and you hide the lower part of your hull, you are gonna bounce everything at tier 6. In tier 7 they might penetrate you with some gold shells, but if they don't have a high penetration, it's literally over for them. If you combine all these facts, it makes the ARL one of the best tier 6 heavy tanks of all time, and tier to tier combined probably the best French tank from the tech tree. Now let's talk about the British. To me, the best tank here is the K7 Action 10, for the same reason as the ARL, and you're gonna see every single tank of this list combines mobility, armor, and an amazing gun. Just maybe for one or two it's a little bit different, but at least for most of them. The K7 Action 10 features everything you need to carry the battlefield. You have a nearly impenetrable armor on the turret as long as you angle it. If you're in all down, you have literally the best spaced armor at tier 8. You have spaced armor everywhere, reinforced armor on the front of the hull. Everything is perfect about this tank. You could literally drive around side scraping, you will bounce everything. All down, you will bounce everything, destroying everything with your DPM, sniping, pushing. This tank is made to be really versatile, and that's what makes it lovely and probably the best British tank out there. The best tank of the Russian tech tree, or I should say about the Russian nation, because we're gonna talk about a premium, it's the Object 252U. Why? Despite the fact that it features everything the same as before, armor, mobility and gun, the main thing about this tank is that it really represents the Chad of Russian heavies. If you compare it with IS-3, if you compare it with T-2020, with KV-5, with literally any other Russian heavies, this one would fuck every single one of them up. That's why it's on the list, and that's why to me it's the most effective Russian tank. You have one of the best, if not the best, I think it's the best actually, side scrape effectiveness, simply because your side armor is impressive. The upper part of the hull is literally impenetrable if you don't show your lower part of the hull. Now this tank has everything to seduce you. It's the perfect heavy to brawl at tier 8 with the K7 Action 10 as well, even if both tanks don't share the same playstyle. What I love is that you can literally brawl into your enemies without dying. That's what it's made for, and that's what is lovely and makes it broken in my opinion, which is why he deserves this place on the list. For the Americans, we lowered down a little bit the tier because we were talking about the M1 Heavy, or T1 Heavy, sorry, which is the tier 5 American heavy tank. I love that tank, and I love the fact that it became one of the strongest tier 5s in one update when Wargaming finally decided to really buff hardcore its hull. It makes it impenetrable for most of the tanks of its tier, and that's why it's really lovely to play it. I want to remind you that when you're playing at tier 5, you are not going to encounter a lot of people that know what gold is and how to use gold shells.
And if they don't use gold, they are not gonna be able to penetrate you. Even with gold shell, they can struggle sometimes. With this tank, as long as you stay straight in front of your opponent without even trying to angle, and they don't use gold shells, you are set up to do a really good game. And that's why, to me, tier to tier, as it has the best armor ever, it deserves its place on this top. For the European tech tree, my favorite and probably the most broken tank of this list is the Progetto 46. That's why we're talking about it. That's the tier 8, tier 8 medium from the European tech tree, especially from Italy, but as Wargaming decided to use the European tech tree to put both the Swedish and the Italians, we are gonna call it the European most broken tank. What I love about this tank is that even if you have an auto reloader, unlike the Swedish tanks, this one actually has a good DPM and is really fun to play, and you will make the difference on the battlefield. What is lovely is that even if you're supposed to have no armor, you can actually bounce shots as long as you show only your gun mantlet. And if you had this armor to this amazing gun to an amazing mobility, it's simply the best medium tank at tier 6, with probably honorable mention to the Chimera. But overall, the Progetto 46 is definitely a tank you gotta get in your garage, because as soon as you're gonna play it, you are gonna love it. For the Chinese tanks, my go-to and most broken tank is the Type 62, and let me explain to you why. I know it can be a surprise for some of you because this tank doesn't feature any armor, but oh boy, comparing the mobility and the gun to others tier 7s, you are among the best. Let me explain. You have an amazing DPM for tier 7 that will allow you to literally destroy every single one of your opponents apart in terms of DPM. You also feature an extremely high penetration with gold shells that will allow you to penetrate even the most armored tier 8s. So just imagine you're like a needle, to be fair. You are gonna be annoying to your enemies, but nobody will really give a fuck about you. And that's where the fun is, and that's where it becomes really interesting to play this tank, because if nobody sees you and nobody gives a shit about you, your DPM is gonna do the rest and you are gonna destroy literally everything. That's why, to me, this is my go-to tank and probably the best tank of the Chinese nation. The only tier 10 of this top, and it's for the Japanese, the STB1. I mean, to be fair, for the Japanese, there is not really a lot of choice. I mean, if you look at the tech tree, the only good tank is the STB or the Ori at tier 10, so I had the choice between both of them, because I'm not going to talk about the Shinukai, which is a pretty shitty tier 5 premium. That's why I went for the STB, because I think if an Ori and an STB fights, the STB is going to win. That's why, for me, the best tank from the Japanese tech tree is the STB. You have an amazing turret armor and an amazing gun dispersion, which will allow you to be really flexible on the battlefield, and that's what makes it lovely, the flexibility that you combine with your armor. Just look at how many bounces I just got there. This is simply amazing, and the fact that Wargaming reworked the armor profile of the turret makes it even more broken than it was already. That's why it's in the list, and that's why it's also my favorite Japanese tank. Concerning the Germans, I think the most broken out there is the E75. Let me explain to you why. This tank features an amazing armor mounted, maybe it's better to say an amazing gun mounted on an amazing turret, because as you have a huge gun mantlet, it's really hard to get your turret cheeks. Yes, you have a cupola, but as long as you know how to play the tank, it shouldn't be a problem. Just wiggle when you're reloading and you're fine. You also have an amazing gun depression for a German tank. I mean, it's really not that bad, and it will allow you to take flexible positions like I'm doing right now, for example. But also, what is lovely is that you feature everything to hold a flank by yourself. If you're against tier 8, they will probably bounce you even on your frontal alarm, because even if it seems like the weak spot on this tank is mainly focused on the lower part of the hull, it's still quite hard to actually penetrate it, especially when you are a tier 8 tank. As long as you angle your tank, you are gonna be a literal bunker that nobody will be able to penetrate. That's why I love this tank. The only problem I have is probably the mobility, which is definitely not the best and will not allow you to take aggressive positions at the beginning of the game, except of course if your enemies are even slower than you are. But it's really a good tank to play with and to have fun with. I love it, and that's why to me, out of all the tanks available in the German tech tree, this one is the best. If you feature an amazing armor with an average mobility with an amazing gun, you have everything you need to have good games. That's why the 75 is the tank I chose. And finally, to finish with an amazing tank from the Hybrid Nation, the Smasher. Do I really need to tell you why this tank is on this top? I don't think so. When you're in tier 6, you one-shot everything with your HE. When you're in tier 7, you one-shot everything there is with your HE. When you're in tier 8 and you can penetrate, you switch to gold and your 250mm of penetration are gonna do the job. It's literally the best tank ever made in this game, apart maybe from the T49A, but as the tank is not available anymore, it doesn't count. But oh boy, do you know I love the Smasher. I could just literally show you the gameplay and end up the talking here, because you already know why this tank is on the top. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video. If that's the case, guys, feel free to subscribe, like and share, and please tell me in the comments your favorite the best, at least in your opinion, the best tanks per nation. I'm really curious about what you guys will come up with. Thank you all for watching. I'm gonna see you soon for a new video, and waiting for that, have a good day.